Mixed cues from Wall Street with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq starting March on a weak note and the Dow closing flat overnight. The benchmark US 10-year yield continues to climb, hitting 4% intraday. Asian markets trade largely lower. South Korea's industrial output falls in January. The SGX Nifty suggests a negative start for the Indian market. Oil prices close a volatile session marginally higher as rising supply offsets expectations of higher Chinese demand. Brent crude trades around $84 per barrel. Russian production has reached pre-sanction levels for the first time, adding to supply concerns. Over a month after the Hindenburg report on the Adani Group, the Supreme Court will deliver its order on setting up an expert committee to review the regulatory mechanism for protection of investors. The apex court has refused to accept any suggestions of panel nominees in a sealed cover by the centre. Falling exports continue to haunt automakers in February, with both Hero MotoCorp and Eicher Motors reporting weak sales from international markets. Hero posts a 15% growth in domestic sales, while Eicher reports a 21% rise in total motorcycle sales. The stage is set for counting in 3 northeastern states of Meghalaya, Nagaland and Tripura. The Bharatiya Janata Party, part of the ruling coalition in all 3 states, is hoping for a big victory. The counting begins at 8 a.m. Hi guys, a very good morning. Welcome to Power Breakfast. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we're looking at as we get into this brand new trading day. There's lots going on, lots for us to speak about. But first up, a look at the Asian markets. We've got quite a mixed handover from Wall Street. So Asia is actually starting off largely on the back foot, but there are no big losses coming through, barring the Hong Kong market. So the Hong Kong market is down 1.4%. But remember, this is after the near 4% rally that we saw yesterday as well. Other than Hong Kong, the rest of the markets are seeing some cuts, but not too much at all. So it's Taiwan is down 0.6%, but the rest of them seeing, perhaps 0.25% to 0.4% in terms of a cut. The only market which is holding up in the green right now is the Korean Kospi index. So that's seeing a gain of around 0.2%. So no real direction coming through from Asia, barring perhaps what's going on in the Hong Kong market, which is up 1%. The SGX Nifty will be up for you now, and that is indicating that we will get a negative start for our own markets. It is right now, it has moved to the low point of the day, and like you can see, there's been a sharp knock in the past few minutes as well, currently around 64 points lower on the SGX Nifty. So that's what's going on across Asia, but let's also talk about Wall Street now. We ended Wednesday's trading session quite mixed. So the Dow Jones was flat, the S&P 500 was 19 points lower, and the Nasdaq Composite slid around 76 points at the close. That's what's happening in the markets, but let's also bring you some important opinion coming in. This is from former Federal Reserve Board Governor Frederick Mishkin. Listen in.
You look at 16 cases of where central banks actually tightened interest rates when, in fact, they had to get inflation down. And this is in many countries, not just the U.S. In every single case, you got a recession. And so, maybe this time is different, but that's usually dangerous thinking. So just on that basis alone, the likelihood of a recession is extremely high. The Fed is actually doing the right thing now. They've actually gotten on board to do what they have to do. They stopped being gradual. They stopped being, they were not preemptive. They now are. But the bad news is that you got to get the economy to slow down in order to get inflation down when it's actually burst up in a way that it has recently.
All right, that is some important opinion that we are looking at. But let's now talk about all of the cues that you should track as we get into a fresh trading session. We have our research team here with the trade setup. So Vivek, Surbi and Nigel are going to take us through the entire trade setup this morning and all of the individual names that you should track as well. In fact, this morning, let's start off with the individual stocks that are likely to be in focus on the back of some news flow that came through. So Surbi is here with that entire list. Surbi?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for that. So, few names that I'm tracking today. Auto companies will be in focus on the back of their monthly sales numbers. For Hero Motor, the sales were up 10%, but the export sales were down 55%. Eicher Motors, their total motorcycle sales were up 21%, and exports saw a marginal growth of 1% at 7,100 units. Adani Group stocks will also be in focus as the group denies reports of securing a $3 billion sovereign wealth fund financing. Just to alert, exchanges had asked for clarification from the company on reports of securing new credit. RVNL, the company, emerges as the lowest bidder for railway projects of 200 train sets. The cost of each train set is 120 crores. Suntech Realty, the company signs a lease deal with Upgrad for its premium commercial project. This project has a revenue potential of 2,000 crores over a lease tenure of 29 years. And lastly, KNR Construction, the company bags an order worth 665 crores in Andhra Pradesh.
All right, Surbhi, thanks a lot. We are going to watch for all of these stocks in today's trading session. Let's also talk about the market cues that are important today. Vivek is here with exactly that. Vivek, the SGX is suggesting that we'll get a bit of a weak start this morning, but take us through everything we should watch.
Well, absolutely right. It was expected to be a much better start as far as the global handover was concerned, coming into March. However, what's actually transpired overnight as far as global markets are concerned is quite subdued. US markets largely ended lower, S&P 500 and Nasdaq, both ending with cuts. Now, also very importantly, the 10-year US yield has reached 4% for the first time since November. Another very important figure as far as markets are concerned. When you're talking about European markets, again, a very lackluster weak handover coming in there as well. The CAC almost dropping 0.5% and DAX to dropping 0.4%. Now, coming to crude oil prices continue to trend slightly higher. Brent futures went up almost 1%, and when you're talking about WTI futures, up almost 0.8% in overnight trading session. Now, coming to Indian markets, after an 8-day losing streak, you actually saw Indian markets bounce back quite smartly in yesterday's trading session. So now what actually happens is that Monday's low of close to 17,255 will become the important support level, and that is what technical analysts are watching very closely. And for the second straight session, the broader end of the markets outperformed. Given the weak global handover and our own strong handover from yesterday, it will be interesting to see whether the bulls or the bears take the day today.
All right, it will be interesting to see how that shapes up. Vivek, thanks a lot for that. Finally, let's also talk about all of the cues from the futures and options space. Nigel, like Vivek was pointing out, we saw quite a smart bounce yesterday. How's it looking this morning?
Well, there was an Asian market party and we participated yesterday. The question is, will we see a hangover or will we see an after party? That's going to be important. Now, in yesterday's trading session, you had the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank. The open interest was low and both those indices went up. So there was some short covering that played out. We made this point yesterday that the PCR, when it goes to around 0.67, 0.7 odd, then in fact you get the buy indicator. Now, because of the put writing we have seen, it's moving back towards that 1 mark odd. What did the FIs do? Well, they added some long positions. They added close to 7,000 long positions, though they continue to remain net short. Close to 82% of their positioning is on the short side. On the index option side, well, they bought puts. The good news, though, is that they wrote puts as well. And put writing in an uptrending market is something that the bulls would like. What were the puts they were writing? Well, the 17,400, 17,350 put, between them, there was more than 1 crore shares that were added in yesterday's trading session. So there was writing that we saw at those levels. And since today's expiry, weekly expiry that will play out, the two strikes which are very, very important, which have the highest open interest, 17,500 call and 17,400 put, which brings us to the level. For the Nifty, well, you'll want it to defend the 200 DMA and move higher. And for the Nifty Bank, you'll want it to move towards the 20 DMA. For starters, though, the SGX Nifty is indicating a more or less, flattish to a mildly negative start, 50-point downtick. So we'll start closer to around the 200 DMA on the Nifty. Let's see whether or not we can defend it by the end of today. Back to you.
All right, we are going to wait by and see if we can defend it. And like Nigel said, let's see whether there's an after party or there's a hangover. Nigel, thanks a lot for that. But with that, it's time for our first short break on the show. When we come back, Dish TV's minority shareholders allege breach of corporate governance practices. We'll bring you the latest on the other side. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast here on CNBC-TV18. An important story now. Dish TV's minority shareholders have alleged breach of corporate governance practices by the satellite television provider. A letter to stock exchanges, SEBI and the company's creditors allege that the board delayed the appointment of directors approved by the ministry. Now, the company has called all of these allegations wrong, baseless and malicious. Ritu Singh is here to fill us in with all of the details. Ritu?
That's right. We do understand that Dish TV's Minority Investors Association has alleged a breach in corporate governance by Dish TV for failing to disclose to exchanges a letter from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting which had approved director nominations on its board. Now, we accessed this letter, which was written by the Minority Investor Association, which has been addressed to the board of Dish TV and also copied to SEBI, stock exchanges, various creditors and other stakeholders. And in this letter, they stated that they obtained this information through an RTI that the ministry had approved names of 6 independent directors for appointment on the board of Dish TV on 26th of December last year. And since then, Dish TV failed to disclose the information to the stock exchanges and also delayed the appointment of directors which were approved by the ministry, thereby committing a breach in corporate governance. Now, these minority shareholders in their letter to the board have demanded that the company convene a board meeting and appoint the ministry-approved directors and hold the management accountable. Now, this is a significant development because it comes just days ahead of Dish TV's EGM, which is scheduled on the 3rd of March, where it is going to seek shareholders' approval to nominate 4 independent directors. And herein lies another issue, because remember, the tussle over Dish TV's board composition has been ongoing between Yes Bank and Dish TV. And according to our sources in Yes Bank, the names proposed by Dish TV do not include any Yes Bank nominees which were approved by the ministry. And not just that, of the 4 names that have been proposed by Dish, 2 have not been approved by the ministry. Now, remember, Yes Bank holds about 24% stake in Dish, which of course now it has transferred to JC Flowers. Dish TV, however, in an exchange clarification, has denied these allegations and called them wrong, malicious, incorrect and baseless. It said that the company is in compliance with all SEBI regulations and the current composition of the board as well is in line with the listing rules and regulations, and said that it will be submitting its response on these allegations which have been made to the NSE by the 6th of March.
All right, Ritu, thanks a lot for bringing us all of the details on this story. But with that, we do have to slip into a short break. On the other side, we're going to shift focus from the world of equities to commodities. We'll tell you what's going on. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Now, a month after the Hindenburg research report alleged fraud and stock manipulation by the Adani Group, triggering a rout in the group's stocks, the Supreme Court will pronounce its verdict on setting up of an expert panel to review the regulatory mechanism for protection of investors. So the court had on February 17th reserved its verdict on a batch of petitions seeking its intervention, as well as investigation into the claims made by Hindenburg Research. It had also refused to accept any suggestions from the center in a sealed cover. So the names for the expert panel will also, be up for you on your screen in just a bit. But that's what we're tracking. The court case will be heard today, and then we will, of course, bring you up to speed with what we do get out of that. With that, let's move on to what's going on in the world of commodities. Manisha Gupta joins us now with an update. Manisha, what are you tracking this morning?
Pavitra, thank you. Well, it's been a strong market overnight as well. What started in Asia after a strong Chinese data actually took across time zones. So whether it was Asia yesterday, Europe, New York, and Asia yet again today is looking at positive cues on the market. Take a look at the Brent crude oil prices, and we are trading positive for the week right now. The investors are expecting record China oil imports in 2023, and with Russia set to cut oil exports for the month of March, there is some positive cues coming in for the space. Also, the crude output has been on the weaker side, but the exports have hit a record high. So all of those factors keeping the crude prices in good favor. Metals as well has been a very strong move for the last 24 hours on the back of strong Chinese data and the decline in US dollar index. Copper is rebounded from its 2-month lows, gaining 1% overnight. Aluminum prices gained 1.5%, and zinc clearly outperformed the whole sector with 2.5% of gains in the overnight market, trading steady in the Asian markets as well right now.
All right, Manisha, thanks a lot for bringing us that update. With that, let's also talk about the two-day G20 meeting, which is underway in Delhi. Foreign ministers are meeting in New Delhi amid growing turmoil in Ukraine, as well as the worsening political conflict between Russia and the West. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also set to address the meeting later today. So Parikshit is here to take us through all of the latest developments, as well as what we can expect today. Parikshit?
Well, we're at the Rashtrapati Bhavan right now, and the foreign ministers meeting is taking place here. So you've got 28 foreign ministers, 40 delegations in total, which are participating in this G20 foreign ministers meet. Top on the agenda is food and energy security, development cooperation, green goals, counter-terrorism. There will be roundtables on all these aspects through the day. But of course, the big issue in the room when all these diplomats and foreign ministers meet will be the Ukraine-Russia war. We saw how the communique talks collapsed in Bengaluru during the finance track because Russia and China did not want any paragraphs on the war to be included in the joint statement. So even now, sources tell us that negotiations are on to have some sort of consensus on a joint statement because that really shows the intention of the G20. They would not want it to end with a summary from the chair or from Minister Jaishankar. They would want all the members to agree on a certain joint statement. So that will be the endeavor. We've been hearing very strong statements from the Russian government, how they would like to counter attempts by the G7 to isolate Russia. Secretary Blinken has already gone on record to say that he will have no talks with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, or the Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang during his visit here. So let's see how the day progresses. But of course, coming to a consensus on the text on the Ukraine war in the communique will be a difficult aspect of these negotiations. But the Prime Minister will be meeting all G20 members later in the day. They will be calling on the Prime Minister. The External Affairs Minister has already met the likes of Sergei Lavrov. He will be meeting Secretary Blinken and also the Chinese Foreign Minister between 11 a.m. and noon today. Back to you.
All right, Pariksha, thanks a lot for that. And we will keep coming back to you for updates on the meet today as well. With that, let's move on and bring you the important updates that came through from the elections. Counting will shortly begin for the crucial, for the states of Tripura, Nagaland, as well as Meghalaya. It will begin 8 a.m. onwards. A total of 180 assembly constituencies voted on the 16th and 28th of February. There will be 69 seats being contested for in Tripura, 59 seats in Meghalaya, as well as 60 seats in Nagaland. Exit polls have predicted a win for the Bharatiya Janata Party with a footprint expansion in Tripura and Nagaland and a larger share of seats in Meghalaya. Okay, so like I said, counting begins at 8 a.m. and we will keep bringing you what we get from there. But for now, we have to wind down on this edition of Power Breakfast with the news that a lot of the Asian markets have recovered quite well. So no big losses. Even the Hang Seng, which was seeing a 1.5% cut, is now, just around 0.3% in the red. The SGX Nifty indicating a weak start, 60 points lower. Thanks for tuning in.